welcome to Inner Peace, Better Health listeners. I'm your host, Sana, and today we have an extraordinary conversation as well as guest for all of you, Darlene Van de Grift. Now, listeners, let me share a bit about Darlene with all of you. Darlene is a medical intuitive, cosmic meditator, medium, and author with over 35 years of experience helping people find clarity and purpose in their lives. So, everyone, today get ready for an enlightening conversation about some interesting topics: body wisdom, ancestral trauma, and in fact, past lives for healing. So, with that, darling, welcome to the show, and it's absolute honor having you with us.
Well, thank you for having me, and I look forward to this conversation.
That's really great, really great. Darling, before even we dive deep into all these different topics, if you can share a bit about your journey with us and what brought you to the world of, ancestral trauma or maybe understanding body wisdom, all these cosmic connections.
Okay, so, I've I remembered my, in utero experience, and so that stuck with me, but it wasn't really traumatic until I got much older and realized what that was. I had lost a twin, early on in my mother's pregnancy, and then my mother was very ill and had been most of my life, and so there was a fascination with the body. I always wanted to know more about biology and, what made humans tick.
Right.
And when she came through a healing crisis, which took about 3 years, and it was very intense when I was about 16. And when she came out of that, she became a healer, and she had quite an extensive practice, and she was making a the thing was I had the intention and the desire to know more, but I really didn't know what that meant, and when she was making $15 an hour and I was making 4, I decided that I would explore that place, and, I became a massage therapist, and the body started to speak to me, and that started the whole ball rolling with you know, the access to the innate wisdom. Where do blockages start from? Are they really even in this lifetime or in the past life? I mean, there was a lot of my own personal journey in all of these years of defining more of who I was so that I could help people to be more of who they can be.
That is very, very interesting. So, I mean, how do you explain this connection between past lives and, maybe the experiences we have right now in our current life? I mean, is there any connection, or, I mean, if you can explain, because I think it's a very, very interesting and there are multiple layers attached. So, if you can share.
Sure. Not everyone that I work with will go back to a past life. Sometimes it's not connected to what they're coming in to see me about, so that's one thing. But if their belief systems don't support it either, we don't go there because there's no point. Doesn't help with their healing, right? So, how that works is if somebody comes in with a pattern, a belief, could be a illness, right? Something that's happening in their body that even the medical profession doesn't necessarily understand, or maybe they keep getting attracted to the same kind of woman or man, right, in their life as a partner. Any of those things, what I do is I track it because there's always something in this lifetime that started that, right? Whether it was, oh, you married somebody just like your mother or your father or your brother or whatever that is. So there's always something in this lifetime. Past lives can't just show up without a resonance or a link or a connection in this lifetime. So tracking that and then going back to see if there's any, and it will show up. It will go back before conception because I track it that way, from present day, going through their ages to find out where there is the most, either the blockage or the resonance with what they're dealing with. And then the past lives, how they come into me is usually in a storyline. I will start with, okay, is this person, this client, male or female, and then everything starts to come in as far as who was involved and is it a mother-father thing? Is it somebody that, maybe their relationship present day, maybe it was in a past life? And when that's identified and described to the client, they start to resonate with it. They start to feel and they start to ask questions. Well, oh, that makes sense because that was my dad and this is how I always felt about him. And it brings it full circle for is there any accountability in that past life that they need to heal so that their present life with this person changes? When you change your perception because you have a clear understanding of the history,
Mhm.
when you change your perception, then the relationship changes.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. I mean, it's very, very interesting to it's incredible to understand how our past can actually influence our present. So, Darlene, now moving on to start with. So, uh, you your work involves body wisdom. What exactly is body wisdom? I don't have any idea about that. I think our listeners will be very interested to know. And how can it guide us in our daily lives?
So we're not taught to address what the body wants. It's usually the mind over matter, right? So, I want to eat this. I don't want to do that. And yet the body has a knowing, an innate wisdom, not only to keep us healthy, but to heal us. And
Mhm.
tapping into that innate wisdom and allowing that to come forward that yes, you might need to change a diet, or maybe you need to drink more water, or this is how this is why your organ is the way that it is, whether that's heart or liver.
Mhm.
Understanding that body wisdom and putting it first, then you're more aligned with healing because you're not getting the body wisdom saying, I don't trust you anymore. You've done this to me or you've done that to me, or, and I look at Ho'oponopono. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But
Mhm.
it's a Hawaiian, it was a Hawaiian prayer to deal with karma, but I find it very useful in having people align with their physical body if there's been any abuse, any accidents, anything that the body might have gone through from the time that you were born, including birth, to go back and talk to that age of as the body, not just as the emotional, but as the body. I'm sorry that this happened to you. Please forgive me. I love you and thank you for sticking with me till my age right now. It aligns energetically. It's honoring the fact that there has been invasion in that physical body, and it aligns it better to work with you towards a better health.
Oh. So, is it something like so? As you mentioned that mind over matter. So, uh, our actions, um, the decisions we make, they are driven by the innate desires in our mind, and
Mhm.
that is somehow directly connected with our body as well. So, do you think that body wisdom kind of balances that, balances the actions or mitigates the risks from actions taken by those innate desires in our mind that they may be driven by any past trauma or something like that?
Yes, so, some people will refer to it as, okay, I pay attention to my gut feeling or my intuition. That's
Interesting.
very much a part of the body wisdom. When you're looking at something or you know that, you wanna you feel like, "I don't need to do that today," or whatever, like, pay attention to that. That's your body wisdom saying, "For some reason, that's not an okay thing to do today. You need to do something else." And there's usually something that will happen that you'll look back on it and go, "Yeah, I'm glad that I didn't do that today," or that when people mindlessly eat,
Mhm.
because they're just shoveling things in, sometimes to fill a void, sometimes to not feel something. But when you ask your body right before, while you're cooking, while you're ready to eat, "Do I really want this?" And just sit with it for 30 seconds. You may find out that, "No, I don't." It's really that connection to listening to what does your body really want and not overriding it with what you think it wants or even denying that it wants anything. You have to do what I tell you.
Wow. I mean, this connection between body and mind and that alignment, I think that's what we seek, but we're not mindfully aware about that. Um, Also, darling, uh, when we talk about trauma, there is something called as ancestral trauma. So, how does what exactly is it? How does it affect our current, present lives and health?
So the ancestral trauma, especially if you grew up in a culture, that had a lot of abuse or whatever that was, and that can be religious issues, that can be, genocide, that can be whatever. It comes through our DNA, and so as it comes through, you may not have trauma in your life, but you may be carrying that ancestral trauma that still affects your perceptions of
Mhm.
your life, yourself, people around you. It will affect how you it affects everything, right? Depending on how deep that trauma has been and what you've been taught about it and how you hold on to it and emanate it in your life. And going back and doing the same kind of work that I would do in a past life is to address the trauma that's happened. And sometimes for people, it's not like 2 generations, it could be 6 or 7 generations ago of something that happened. The potato famine is one that I keep running into, and that ability to feeling that, you're starving to death and you're being betrayed and all of that when you honor that timeline and you heal it in the best way that we are given in this timeline, again, it shifts. And I do believe that the DNA shifts. Epigenetics has been studied for decades. And when you shift something around the consciousness and the emotional level of the ancestral trauma, what shifts here is your DNA. You no longer need to hold it. It's been honored. It's been healed, it's been honored, it's been, not put aside, but really brought forward to listen and to grow through whatever's been holding on to you that might have been that ancestral trauma.
Wow. Wow. And is it something that we realize only when we grow up, or uh, is it can it affect our actions during childhood as well?
Yeah, it can I mean, we're very open as a child, whatever's coming in to our consciousness, and I would tell people, if you wanna do any real personal work with yourself is to identify what you believe. Write down, what do I believe about the world? What do I believe about government, my family, men and women? Are there a difference? Women are supposed to be like that. Men are supposed to be like this. Whatever those belief system, those categories of belief systems, and then track it back to where did I learn that?
Exactly.
Was it religion? Was it my mother, my father, my grandmother, teachers? Like, where did that come from? And does it still fit me? Do I really still believe in that? Because we get in the patterns and in the ruts of believing what we were taught that is true when it may not be true for you.
Mm. Makes sense. Makes sense, darling. Well, uh, I think healing from the past, it can be challenging, but I believe your insights, they make it seem possible. Definitely. Um, so, Darlene, since we have now very well understood all the three aspects of body wisdom, ancestral trauma, uh, you know, past lives for healing. Uh, let's talk about what steps can someone take navigating through any one of these aspects. So when we talk about body wisdom, How are there any daily practices that you recommend which can help to tune into our body wisdom more effectively, make it more active?
Well, meditation is always a place to start because we're so bombarded with outside, do, and all that. And the meditation, even if it's 3 minutes a day to start with for somebody that feels like they can't calm their mind, right? It's that practice of saying, I want to, because the mind and the spirit, when you are committed to doing something as a practice, it wants to work with you more, right? It's not just saying, "Oh, yeah, I wanna do that," and then you never do it, right? Or I do it once a week or something. It's the practice of just 3 minutes a day of calming as best you can, to just
Mhm.
hold that space, and what that does is it helps you to intuit and bring that inner wisdom forward so that it becomes a connection, and then it becomes a connection even more to the spiritual part of you. And what I would tell people is that once you have that inner connection, once you feel like, oh, I can do this for 10 minutes, right? Is to ask a question. Don't just, it's not just about, it's like active meditation. It's like, it's not just sitting there and being in the spiritual level of the vibration of emptiness. It's not only about that. That's a great place to be. But ask a question, show me. Simple as that. Show me, or show me something today that I don't know, and then watch. Come out of that, maybe even in that meditation, if you're very visual, maybe you'll get a visual picture of something, or maybe you'll have a body sense of something, or maybe you'll even hear, a word that is not something that's not somebody in the room, It's like it's that internal place of connection. And figure out, because you're developing a relationship with the spiritual part of you, a multidimensional part of you, your spiritual guidance system. You're developing a relationship. You got to understand the language of however it comes to you, and watch for synchronicity in your life that day. Wow, that was really interesting. Somebody told me about this book when I just asked about relationship, right? It's that place of aligning and sinking you in to what is the most valuable thing that we have, is to know that we're not alone, and that we have spiritual guides, and that we have multidimensional parts of ourselves that want to be healed and that are moving forward to help us become all that we can be.
Yes, yes.
So meditation is one. Let me just tell you a couple other things. So that's one. Two is going back to that, like we just talked about, going back to what do you believe and is it really yours? Three is developing a journal around the Ho'oponopono, because it's things that you not only have done to your body, right? So it's the body wisdom, or the body of how, through accidents or abuse or whatever like that, that you need to be accountable to the body. That's one part of it. But if you have any regret, shame, remorse, it's another thing that is very heavy in the body, and it will hold us back because we can say, "Oh, I wanna do that, but, I can't," and you may not even know why. So, take a look at the people that you feel like, "Well, I could have done better with my mother or my father," or, "Why did I say that to that person?" Or, "I'm really a mean person," and I go back to those people, make a list of whoever that is has been in your life, and take time. It might take a couple months. When I did it, it took like 3 or 4 months, and I had a stack of I had a real big, fit, thick journal, but it helped in me forgiving myself, because that's really hard. As you
Yes.
It's really hard to forgive yourself, and so start with a Ho'opono journal with anybody that you think you've harmed.
And forgiveness, it is such a powerful tool. I think it's not a sign of weakness. I think gives that immense strength, mental strength. Maybe it's forgiving uh, our own past uh, self for any action we did and the consequences we had gone through, or maybe our loved ones. So I think it's such a powerful tool. And yes, it may take time, as you mentioned about it, but I think it's a gradual process, and of course there is light at the end of the tunnel. So I think your approach is very, very enlightening, darling.
And just remember, it's, because people say, well, you need to forgive yourself. You need to let it go. You need to forgive yourself. Most of the time, it's about being accountable for
Mhm.
what your part is in creating that. It could be 1%, it could be one drop. It doesn't matter. When you become accountable for, oh, well, like that, then it becomes the next step is forgiving yourself for that. If you hold on to, I didn't do anything to deserve this, it will block you.
True, true. Lovely, lovely. I'm in. mm, I think it's such an enlightening conversation, but of course, because of the time constraint, before we wrap up, Darlene, um, what future trends, not exactly trends, but how do you see, uh, you know, if we wish to embrace body wisdom, if we wish to embrace the existence, the solutions, the practices around, healing through ancestral trauma, and also, in fact, get into past life healing, what future trends do you see happening here?
When we clear and clean up who we have been, which is really what we're talking about, that's past lives or ancestral or present life. When we clear that up, when we own it, when we heal it, when we integrate it, we're more whole. We're becoming all that we can be. And I really believe that in incarnating into a human body, that is one of the bigger purposes. How do we move through this lifetime to be more of who we are? To be maybe all that we can be in this lifetime because it's presented to us through these avenues, through these channels of being more present, being more aware, being mindful, loving your body, loving yourself, you know, and then contributing that in some way to humanity. It's not just about me, me, me. It's like once you start to realize that you're an integral part of the one, do you wanna do? Because everything that we do within ourselves has a ripple effect. We don't acknowledge that in a big way. We're not taught that in schools. We're not taught even about emotional stuff in the schools, so everything has to change, and, like, when I look at this timeline that we're in, it's a really I mean, it's a pivotal timeline more so than ever before because the Earth is in her evolution, humanity is in its evolution, and they're all coming together to really elicit a new way of being. How do we function as humans more wholly? Cleaning up. I mean, that's my work is helping people to clean up their past to become all they can be, to anchor them in to now. And then what are you going to do with it? If you knew that you had been a shaman in another lifetime and you've been avoiding it in this lifetime, or you had been a healer, or you had been an artist, or if you bring that forward, what are you going to do with that? You know, now that can be contributory towards the whole. It's that place of believing that we're all one, and if we are, how do we participate?
So, so and as poet Rumi rightly said, that you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop.
Mhm.
I think you have shared the right. Uh, I think it's a valid point, valid message, and I think definitely our listeners. I encourage all of our listeners to explore more about body wisdom, uh, how, you know, they can get healed through ancestral trauma, if any. And of course, Darlene, if they wish to reach out to you, how they can do that.
My website is Soul Union, SOULUNION.com. They can reach me on there. They can see the work that I do, and I run a group once a month that deals with going into a guided meditation and working with the spiritual level and what they consider the white space, which is a co-creative, neutral place. Um, there's healing done there.
Great. That's really lovely, Darlene. We'll have all the links in the show notes. And thank you so much for sharing your incredible knowledge and your experiences with all of us, your journey as well. And I think it was such an enlightening conversation. And I'm very, very sure our listeners have found it same as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, all of you listeners, I would like to say that understanding our body wisdom, healing ancestral trauma, and exploring past lives, it can lead to profound personal growth. So we heard it from Darlene. So make sure to connect with her, refer to the show notes along with this episode. And until then, stay curious and keep exploring that path to your inner peace, your inner wisdom. This is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.